I'm Lasse, I'm from the company Dreamwave, and I want to answer the question why I think that flexibility brings safety in wave design, and why we think that this is the key to building river waves in with natural boundary conditions. Yeah, as I said, we're Dreamwave. If you want to follow us, this is the way. And we exist since 2006, kind of 8. It was founded. And before that, I want to show a quick video. There were already investigations going on for some project in Portugal. Is it loud enough? Yeah.
Eu acho que esta onda de sonho vai-nos permitir surfar num dia de flat e vai-nos permitir treinar manobras que no mar serão mais difíceis.
Espero encontrar um model test altamente sofisticado que nos dê a exata sensação do que é uma onda artificial.
Im Winter 2006 an der TU München in Obernach. Wassermarsch für einen einzigartigen Versuch. Über 2 Becken, die über ein Gefälle miteinander verbunden sind, wird Wasser über eine Art Rutsche beschleunigt. An einer Kante wird das Wasser aufgestockt und eine Welle baut sich bei entsprechender Wassermenge und Fließgeschwindigkeit auf. Bei der Dreamwave werden über 5 Pumpen 25 Kubikmeter Wasser pro Sekunde transportiert.
Die Leute an sich lieben das Komfortable, so dass man nicht unbedingt jetzt eine Woche warten muss auf die Wellen, sondern einfach sagen kann, ich hätte gerne Welle und Zoom.
Zahlreiche Versuche, Stunden der Überlegungen, wie man solch eine Welle am besten konstruiert, sind bereits in das Projekt investiert worden. Immer stellte sich die bange Frage, ob das alles so funktionieren wird.
Das Schlüsselerlebnis war sicherlich, als wir, ich weiß gar nicht mehr genau, vor 2 Jahren ungefähr, an den Versuch damals an der Technischen Universität München Figuren auf die Wellen gesetzt haben und die sind von alleine gefahren und wir konnten nicht mehr aufhören. Das war absolut der Kick und das war der Moment, wo jeder von uns wusste, das wird was und da müssen wir weitermachen.
So yeah, so this was the start of the excitement for Dreamwave. And yeah, unfortunately, or maybe also fortunately, we stopped thinking about pump-driven solutions for creating waves, and we went for a sustainable wave concept that we actually planted in Nuremberg and Hanover now. And we're super proud to have built those waves, and they're both built and operated by the local communities, and they're all here, which is nice. Yeah, and yeah, I gotta say I was more than nervous before we opened if everything's gonna work out, and was kind of one of the first pilot projects like this. And yeah, but today we had the German championships at the Waves and also the RSL already in wait a second, Nuremberg, and it's gonna be in Hanover next year probably. We're still talking about it with Quirin. The 2 guys you saw before, they were younger then, but they were Ulrich and Markus, which are the founder of Dreamwave. Markus is a professor at the University of Innsbruck for hydroengineering, and he came up with the main ideas for the ramp we use today. Ulrich is our man for numbers and for the financial things. Then we have Marco and me. We actually do and did the same thing. We're both engineers and surfers, and we went through the universities of Munich and Innsbruck and finished our degrees there. And then we started working for the Dreamwave. And then we have some external people who help us from time to time, like Michael, the son of Markus, or my brother is sometimes helping when we have to dive or something. Yeah. And we went through loads of investigations, apart from those you already saw in the video, which were at the Munich University. These are at the University of Innsbruck. We had models in different scales. These two are, for example, for Munich, a Wittelsbacher Brücke, where we had a model of 25 times 8 meters, and we investigated, we had a scale of 1 to 12, and then there was another huge model in the same spot, also 25 times 8 meters with a scale of 1 to 20 to investigate the Zillertal. Both projects are not yet built. Then there's a model that we use to isolate the main parameters for our wave, which is in a scale of 1 to whatever we wanted to. And this is probably the most important one that we used so far. And we also, before we built Nuremberg, we were a little bit afraid of the forces acting inside the system. So we had another model built where we investigated the forces acting on the structure in a scale of 1 to 2.5. And that was actually the first ever Dreamwave that could be served. Just 1 meter wide though.
How do you handle the scale for the surfer?
The scale?
For the wave.
Yeah, Marcus isn't that big actually. So. Additionally, we do a lot of numerical simulations for here in the longitudinal section, which is pretty interesting and just is a good foundation for the rest of the experiments, but also in three-dimensional wave shapes. Let's come back to the topic of flexibility. I want to lead through a couple of examples for different wave solutions with existing projects actually. So I can explain why systems get more complex, the more complex the boundary conditions on the location are. So for example, if you, on the right side you always see a discharge curve, a typical discharge curve of the spot. And here, for example, at the Eisbach, you have a very constant discharge throughout the year, except from a few weeks in spring when they clean the whole river. Which brings us to a simple solution, because we have, short explanation, Q is the discharge, headwater and tailwater. So we have only really little variation in discharge and therefore the water levels. And this means we can actually build a wave with a very simple approach. And this is what it kind of looks like. My drawing is not that good, but anyways. And additionally to the structure on the soil, we have disturbing rocks, which are attached to the soil and then keeps the river, the wave in the position where it is. So if you get rid of the rocks, those cuboid rocks there, you might lose the wave or at least make it flatter. Or maybe it would even break or get flat. I mean, this is something that Robert told us before. It depends on the tailwater level, if it's going to be flatter or if it's going to break. Then if we take a look at the Alm Canal in Salzburg, we also have only little variation in discharge and therefore headwater and tailwater level, but we have no rocks that keep the wave in position. So what we need is a little bit adjustment to the ram to create a wave, because if we don't have anything that's movable, the wave would only work on a few days of the year when headwater and tailwater and discharge match. So what we do have there is a little kicker attached to the end of the ramp, and by rotating the kicker you can adjust the height boundary conditions for the water levels. Maybe it's important to say that from now on I'm just talking about deep water waves, so there's no submerged structure in the wave that builds up the wave. And also important maybe that the boundary conditions can be created somehow else. It doesn't always have to be like a rotating kicker or something. It can also be some, I don't know, water or air-filled pillow that's lifting the kicker up and down. Yeah, and then Surfwell Augsburg isn't here today, unfortunately, but here we already have a more natural discharge curve where we have very high and very low discharges from time to time. And so we have variation in discharge, headwater and tailwater level, and that makes it necessary to have something that is also steerable in the height, but much more than at the Alm Canal. So we need, like the kicker, they want to put in there, and you can pull it over the ramp, and this way you get it higher or lower. and you create the right boundary conditions for the wave. You could also use a rotating ramp to higher or lower the kicker position. Yeah, and it's important to say, I mean, you could definitely also just attach a fixed kicker to the ramp, but then you also would get only little days of the year to surf. And on the other days, it might be a really dangerous situation for people. The river wave in Salzburg, also a natural river, it's the Traun. And here we also have to change the position of the headwater position of the ramp, because we have to adjust the ramp to the headwater actually. And we control the discharge going through. So here we have very, very high variation in discharge and water levels, bringing us to a solution where we can, let's call it position 1 and position 2. So headwater position is position 1, here's position 2. You have to be able to change both of them. The cool thing in Salzburg is that they always have enough water to create a 10-meter wide wave. It's different in Nuremberg, where we also have a natural river with crazy discharge variation, and we also have to keep the headwater stable at a certain level. So what we need is a steerable headwater position, position 1, to keep the headwater stable, and a steerable position 2 to create a wave at changing tailwaters. But also sometimes, as you can see at the discharge, it gets really, really low. So it gets lower than the width of the wave, and we already said we need like 1 cubic meter per second and meter width to create a wave. So what we do is we can narrow the channel and therefore get more power into the wave. Yeah, I mean, I take these examples because they're existing already. Doesn't mean that you definitely need those modules or something, you just need some chance to narrow the channel somehow. And the thing is that all our projects so far are actually in natural rivers, well, at least the most of them. And most of them have so low discharge that you would have to build a really narrow wave to always be able to surf. But on some time, you want to sail from 10 meters, not just 5 meters. And for example, when we look at the planning of Nuremberg, we have an average discharge of 11.5 cubic meters per second. And if we take the condition that the wave needs around 1 cubic meter per second and meter width, you could calculate the width of the wave of 11.5 meters. If we build that wave in Nuremberg, we would have like 80 days of surf per year, and the rest of the time we wouldn't have a good wave for surfing. So what did Nuremberg do? They narrowed the wave a little bit to 8 meters, and we already get more than 200 days of surf a year. But by adding a solution where you can even get the channel smaller, you can surf every day now, except from those where we need maintenance or there's flooding. And in Hanover, you can even narrow the channel more to 3 meters width, which isn't very nice to surf, but for beginners it's still nice, and I think in the future waves won't be built just for advanced surfers, but mainly for learners, and they can also learn on 3 meters. And yeah, why am I telling you all about this maximizing of surf days? It's mainly about if you plan a very expensive project, the people who make the decisions, they want to know how much surf do I get, and how much money do I have to spend for it, and how much money can I get for this amount of surf. So they need safety and planning. And this is very important because in the beginning you somehow find out how much the wave will cost, but you don't know yet how much it will bring income. And then it is really important that you can give reliable information to those who decide. And if you just say, yeah, we can build a wave and it might work on 10 to 20, 40, 50 days a year, they can't really calculate with these numbers. So if we, for example, take the total costs of Hanover, there are different things that have to be taken into account. And you take out the costs for the system itself. I mean, of course, this is now don't really concentrate on the numbers because, of course, when you don't use the system we built in, there are other things that you can get rid of maybe. like the little house where the aggregate stands in. But just to give you an idea of that you can't really get around certain structures when you plan a wave. For example, like you need a strong foundation. It's not just because you don't want to have your whole building pushed down the river or that it's buoyant or something, but also when you just like put a wall into a river and there can be pressure gradients that just destroy the soil. So if we take Hanover, for example, and we try to build it with an easier approach like at the Eisbach, so we still need a foundation, and we get rid of the whole system, then we could guess like we could get like 10 to 30 surf days a year because water levels change like crazy and discharge too. And if we go through the rest of the examples, this is like a really rough guess of what you could get how much surf you could get out. And due to the variation in discharge and water levels, the surf days are completely dependent on it. So now we can actually say that we have 320 to 340 surf days a year in Hanover. And if you take the total costs again of the project and you derive the total costs of the same project without a special design system for it, then you can somehow calculate the costs for surfing and not the cost for the project, because I think it's very important for decision makers that they know how much the surfing is worth when they build the wave. So if we take the, again, don't concentrate on the numbers, okay, it's a really rough guess. And if you only have 10 to 30 surf days and the project is like 1.4 million only because you just have to build the foundation and a few other structures, then the surf day would cost you over a period of 10 years like 6,000 euros or something. Or, yeah, and if you go through the rest of the examples, you always have pretty high numbers for it. But the more adaptable the system gets, the more surf days you can predict, and therefore it gets every day gets less expensive for you. And you can also count on those numbers. I mean, when you have this system, for example, it's not really sure if it's going to be 10 to 30 days. It can be 10 to 30 days in the one year, then it can be 100 days in the next year, and so on. If you have a movable structure, you can say, okay, every year it's going to be like this, kind of. Yeah, and also, if you provide more surf days, you're going to have less surfers each day. So my main points are that decision makers, they need safety, and flexibility brings safety. And that the total cost should always be seen in relation to the outcome that is provided. So ergo, how much surf you get. So in our eyes, it should be not the goal to build as cheap as possible, but to get as much surf as possible when you plan a river project. Of course, officials never see it that way. They want to know the initial cost, of course. But I think as more and more waves get built, I think it gets in their head that it's more important to see it in the long run. And also there are so many other things you have to care about. So actually, when we get back to this slide, the wave system isn't the main cost driver for any project. There are further advantages to flexible wave systems. For example, in Hanover, we can make it invisible. There's the possibility to use it as a kayak wave. It's not the perfect wave for rodeo kayakers, but still they like to use it. Because of the modular system, you have the chance to go through the turnwater, what's it called? Kehrwasser?
Eddy current?
Yeah, through those eddies into the wave. And yeah, and in Hanover, when you put the ramp down, the flow gets slightly gets slower, and then they can also do front flips and stuff. And you have the possibility to shape special waves. And for example, you can shape kickers in it. Then there's adaptability for, like in this project, we want to use it as a wear as well to keep the headwater for power plant. Automatization, well, it's not really an advantage. It's actually something that comes with the complexity of the system. and safety, which is a really important point, and I want to talk about it a little bit more. So in general, we have different wave jumps. I think everyone has seen that before. We have a wave, which we want to have. We have the B jump, and I think we just called it that way. I don't think that you're going to find it somewhere in the literature. But the B jump is still a wave underneath the white water, and it's not dangerous for people, but it's not good for surfing. Kayakers can use it for their maneuvers. They like it. The A jump gets dangerous already. I think those arrows are in the wrong direction. You have to think of them in this direction. So you have the roller, which is going back towards the ramp. And you can't really make it out of this as a person. And then you also have this big roller with a backflow on the surface. And they are pretty dangerous situations. So we talked about it before, but I want to show you again quickly. Position 1 and 2 is clear, right? And we have 3 different concepts to guarantee safety in the wave, in the hydraulics of the wave. So what we use in Nuremberg is that we lift position 1 up. So we stop the flow, and the whole thing becomes like a lake, and you can get the person out that's stuck somewhere in the hydraulics. We could also just lower position 1 that higher the discharge in the wave and therefore makes it flatter and pushes the person out. Or you can lift up position 2 that also makes the wave flatter and push the person out. So concept 2 and 3 are basically doing the same thing, but with less or more water. We tried all those concepts in the laboratory, and I'm just gonna, there's some pictures. So this is concept number 2, I think, where you higher the discharge. You can see a roller with a backflow here. Then you lower position 1, the discharge increases, and the wave gets flat. And you have no dangerous situation in the wave or behind the wave. Then there are 2 videos for the other concepts. We only used a little amount of water here for. So this is me jumping into the wave in Hanover and holding onto the ramp underneath the water. And then Markus presses the safety button here. And now you can see that the wave gets flatter and flatter and flatter. I still try to hold on. And at some point, it just pushed me out there. So there are actually no eddies that pull you somewhere underneath the ramp or something. There's nothing dangerous in there. Just push you right out of the wave. In Nuremberg, it looks like this. This is Marco jumping in. And someone presses the button. The modules get lifted up. And the flow stops. And the maximum amount of time that it can take is 15 seconds when the modules are completely down, and then you have like a discharge of 24 cubic meters per second or something. Yeah. And you can save the person. Yeah, so this is why I think that flexibility brings safety, once in a financial way and second in a technical way. And our outlook for the next couple of months, I guess, is that if you look at at a map, that we want to have waves everywhere, kind of. So it's going to feel like you live close to the ocean everywhere in Europe, hopefully soon. In a few months. Okay, let's say the next decades. And also we want to work on new special wave shapes in the coming time. Thank you. Oh, and yeah, no. I wanted to add something to the previous presentation that I was really impressed how good he had his numbers. That was crazy. But I think it's really important that if you look at building waves in locations where you have electric hydropower, that you don't just take the costs of the wave into account, but also the ecological footprint. And this is a very important topic, I think, because we haven't spoken about that yet.
Question here. Yeah. So you mentioned the Eisbach. Maybe you can go back to the slide, because the Eisbach is a fixed construction. Yeah. The water level is quite constant, but still you have variations of like 10 centimeters or so. Yeah. So for Flosenende, where we also have a fixed construction, already like 2 centimeters kills the wave. So why, in your opinion, the Eisbach is always running, right? It's maybe a little bit flatter, maybe a little bit steeper, but it never breaks, it's never white water. Why is that?
I think that the Eisbach is more or less a floater.
I think the wave is built up by the rocks in the wave. You have so much water, so the water is really deep. You have a really deep. It feels like a deep water wave, but still it runs over construction or over a structure, and therefore always gets built up.
I think it's because when we do a project on a river natural, but when we do it, we try to optimize the design to have the wider wave with the amount of water we have. So we push the design of the wave at the limit, and when the wave is at the limit, only a few centimeters can keep the wave. In Eisbach, you have a lot of water, and so the wave is not at the limit, and you can.
It's way more stable when you have enough water. So the tailwater would have to rise a lot so that the wave breaks, because it's just so much water and therefore so much power in it.
Talks about floater problem, or thing that Robert mentioned. I do understand, I hated the floater, maybe you remember in Bartels, the floater, and you could not ride it with a normal surfboard, right?
Yeah.
What? No, but this is not the same. This is just building the shape of a wave, and you still have, you can run it with surf it with a normal surfboard with fins, right? So is it really just because surfers don't like that? Because it seems to me that it makes much more sense to build a floater.
Yeah, but it's not that there's a floater and a wave. It's not. There's like a hybrid in between. So as for example at the Vlny, it's also a wave, and you have a kicker which is submerged and showing in the direction of the wave. When you look at Nuremberg, the kicker is horizontal, and the wave comes up behind it. So there's like it's not a wave, a deep water wave or a floater, but it can be a deep water wave going over a structure, and the structure keeps the wave in place.
Yeah, but this makes more sense to me. If it's more stable and you have less the possibility that it breaks down and stuff, it makes much more sense.
But you need more water.
Yeah. If we had the amount of water of the Eisbach, dude, we can build waves everywhere. No, but I mean, maybe it's wrong to say it's a floater, but it's the wave's kept in place by the structure underneath it, and not only by the hydraulics.
I said it's always good to have more water, because then you have this possibility to play with the different constructions.
And it's because there was a wave before at the Vlny without a kicker, and there was just a little bit more water coming down.
Yeah, and this was also never going wide, right? Almost, but it was moving. It was moving.
Yeah, because at the Vlny the wave was all hydraulic jump, and the structure didn't help the hydraulic jump. And now you have a little structure that helps to stabilize the hydraulic jump in place.
Maybe for context, at the Vlny we have 8 meters of wave with 8.9 meters cubic meters per second. So just above this 1 cubic meter.
Oh yeah, and I want to add, actually, when we look at Hanover, we're surfing with like 0.8 cubic meters per second too. It's pretty good, actually, and also I think it's always it's always depending not only on the discharge but also on the drop height. So if you have a higher drop, you can have less water, but at some point the drop gets too high and the film gets too thin, and the wave is just too messy then.
I have a question regarding your experience with Hanover and Nuremberg. How costly is the Dreamwave system, like let's say per meter of wave? Like, what did it cost?
I think if you add one more module, which is absolutely the same model as the other 3, the last module won't cost that much anymore. Yeah. So.
How much did those waves cost?
It's like 500,000, 600,000 euros.
You mean the wave module?
You just mean the steel structure plus steering system.
You know, you're breaking it down. So the module you buy from Dreamwave is like 500,000–600,000?
Yeah, it depends on the year. I mean, we really had trouble. I mean, we started building the first one when there was no Corona and there was no Ukraine war. So things are changing and prices were rising like crazy. So we were like really, oh my God, when we got the next offer from our constructor, that was crazy. It was like, oh my God, how can we survive like this?
That was Nürnberg now, just the modules and the technology. It's like 500,000–600,000 plus construction, like putting in it, which was probably also included.
I mean, you mean the rest of the?
It was in total 3 million.
Yeah, in Nürnberg it was in total 3 million. In Hanover it's 2.4 million. And yeah, it's the. I mean, the part of the part for the wave system itself is like, was a fifth, a quarter or something of the total cost.
Very important to as one of the first project, and the second one is in Hanover in the old town. So that's not funny. That's our little twin project, and I think this is the price which we have to pay for new systems. And I think the construction side and the struggle with the cities and so on is getting much more better and better if we have more knowledge in the field. So I think that will help all projects in the future.
One last question, guys.
I want just to add one separate point, because I think, I mean, out of our experience or my personal experience, like it's just like adding up on the topic what Lasse said. I mean, like for the first instance, I mean, like every project is unique and something comes out which shapes us any kind of waves depending on the system, the surrounding, the financial, and the organization. But what I think what was missing, like you added like the flexibility in the different water flow, also the safety. I want to add, like, because we were talking before about competitions, I mean, it's about developing our sports and what we think our sports is, you know. Do we build like a wave which is just like for everybody, for beginners, or is it like who make it sporty or competitive? And I think I just want to add this dimension in the thinking. Also, this might be like a way of thinking when you think about like wave building. What can be after it? Can it be a big, a small wave, a powerful wave? I can say from Nuremberg that we do have a Dreamwave system, and this gives us the opportunity, just like the more water we have, the more variety we have to shape a different wave, which some are like suitable for beginners, but also we can tune up the water and make a very much competitive wave. So I mean, like the waves you see we use in competitions, they are different than the waves we use in everyday's operations, because we have to take care of so many factors like the wave and then the water, the second hydraulic behind, which is also very much linked to like how the whole setup is, where we still are learning a lot, like where every wave project is learning a lot. And I just want to share with you this dimension. This is also which can be thought about. It's not just building a wave, but also think about what can I do with the wave? Who do I address? What's my target group? And maybe I get a certain flexibility by thinking about which kind of construction.
Yeah, and also, yeah, I mean, my main point is that when you build a wave and you're operating a wave and you have a booking system and you can't guarantee that there's going to be a wave on that day, you're going to always cancel the sessions. And this is actually not really good for planning your financial ways.
I think the planning is, or there's also a topic in the planning process, because we always talk about the average from our river levels about the last years. But we see that this average is not so stable. We see that everything is moving, the nature is really crazy at the moment, and we will see that we need flexibility in the next years. Because also our politicians, they ask us
is it really safe that you can build this system and you can serve 10 years? I don't know. But if you have the flexibility, you can hope them, yeah, it's possible, but it's a bit more expensive, but you have then...
Yeah, we have to all look to the future and the water demand and the rivers. It's going to be really tricky.
And for us as wave builders, we are working with clubs and communities, which is our main goal, and it's super nice. If you take a look at an investor, he would never care about the initial costs of the project. He wants to know what he got in 10 years from it. So also just to think about.
Thanks,
Thanks, guys. Thank you.